Hey everybody, welcome. Happy Tuesday. Today on Get Live with Dracaena Wines, we are going to be talking about clones. So a little bit of the science behind the winemaking. And there's so many people who come in and they ask about clones because we discuss clones in the tasting room. And there's a lot of what is that? Why is it called a clone? How is it different? And a lot of differences of like not understanding what's the difference between a clone and just a whole other different variety. And so we are going to get into clones today. And the interesting fun fact is that Dolly Parton actually plays a role in this. So yeah, how does Dolly Parton do this? Well, let's go back into actually the science of what a clone is, okay? And obviously, the first thing that I think most people of whatever age we are now, right? When we hear clone, we think of Dolly the sheep. And yes, Dolly Parton played a role in the creation of Dolly the sheep, but she really, not in a direct way. So Dolly the sheep actually was born in July of 1996. So the concept of a clone has been around for a long time. And the institute in Scotland is the Roslin Institute, and they were working on a research project to develop a method of producing genetically modified sheep or livestock. And this was supposed to help the world and do all this. But because Dolly the sheep was created from a mammary gland, they named her Dolly after Dolly Parton. So Dolly the sheep was created from a cell that was taken from a mammary gland. And this is really important in terms of how clones came about, because previous to Dolly the sheep, there were other sheeps that were created, but they were all created by the use of embryonic cells. Dolly here was the first one that was created due to an adult cell, this mammary gland. And what this means is that we can kind of grow things to help in the research, help cancer, help all of this other stuff because of this. Now, what does Dolly the sheep have to do with winemaking? Well, we do use clones in the process of winemaking, okay? So clones are really common in the winemaking world, and it's super easy. It's really not that big of a deal on how to make a clone. Basically, what we're going to do is take a root, okay? So when there is a vine that is producing well, that vineyard, the person in the vineyard recognizes it as being a healthy vine, doing whatever it wants to do, the winemaker wants it to do. What they're going to do is they're going to take a clipping of that vine. So as that shoot goes off, okay, the cane, they're going to cut that. So we've talked about pruning in the past. When we take those discarded canes that we use for the pruning, we can then create a clone. And all we're going to do is basically take that shoot, and we're going to kind of dip it in rooting hormones, which is auxin and cytokinins. And then what this does is it excites that shoot, and it's going to tell it, okay, well, now you've got to grow roots here, even though you didn't grow roots there before. And as those roots grow, it's super simple. You just take that clipping, you put it in dirt, and you let it grow. The other thing we can do is we can take that clipping and we can insert it, we can graft it into a different rootstock. But doing it by this way, adding those hormones and allowing that clipping to grow on its own, is what is a very true clone. So it's going to be 100% of the genetic makeup of that mother clone. So after we then grow this, we can put it in the soil, and we're going to have an identical vine to that mother clone. Now, that is what a clone is. But clones occur because there are little genetic mutations that happen. Just like in us, every day, some little genetic thing inside our body changes. We don't know what's going on. But in the vineyard, somebody in the vineyard has recognized this new plant that has grown as something different, okay? It may have a tighter cluster. It may ripen at a different time. It may produce a little bit darker fruit, okay, or a different profile on the flavors or aromatics. And that little tweak is what has made that change. Well, what happens now is the person in the vineyard is like, yes, I love this new change that this genetic makeup has done, and I'm going to clone it. I'm going to now grow more and more of that so that I have more plants that are doing what I want them to do. So in a vineyard, we are going to want to add variety to these clones if we want to have some, dimension to those wines, okay? And so clones have been going on for generations in the winemaking world, okay? And right now, there does seem to be a bit of confusion of what the term clone is, because it does get a little sciencey and geeky in that. So there's people out there who are trying to kind of change that. You hear clone or you may hear selections. So these are the same thing. Now, what's really occurring is that certain grape varieties are known for their clones or their selections. So like Chardonnay or Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir has 1,000. I'm not over, pushing that. I think there's over 1,000 Pinot Noir clones or selections out there. And you hear about them. Same thing with the Chardonnay. Right? If you have a Pinot Noir, you hear, oh, this is clone 777, or this is the Colombard clone, or this is, this clone. So Pinot Noir has been, in our wine world, has been really trained to look for specific clones. And if you taste those clones, they do have different characteristics. Now, not all grape varieties are well known for their clones. It's not like people are out there talking about the clones, but pretty much every grape variety out there is going to have a clone because it's a natural thing that's happening. That's funny. I want to clone my wine selection to double up without parting with my dollar bills. That would be an awesome way to have a clone. Absolutely. So for example, Cabernet Franc, you don't really hear people talk about clones a lot with Cabernet Franc, but there are actually 31 documented different selections or clones of Cabernet Franc, and each one has a genetic difference that acts differently in the vineyard. So if you go to our YouTube channel, last harvest season, we actually did a video where Michael was talking about the 2 different clones that he was working with on that day, and he showed videos of what the clones look like and how they varied. One definitely had larger shoulders. The other one was a looser cluster versus a tighter cluster. So these are just the clones. Now, in Dracaena Wines with us, we are currently using 3 different clones. Our Reserve is a single clone, and our Classic has 3 different clones or selections in it. But stay tuned. There might be some new information coming up with that. So that is basically the general gist of what a clone is. To its basic form, a clone or a selection is a tweaked genetic modification that occurred naturally in nature. Somebody recognized that it was different and liked what that characteristic did, and then they went through and they propagated the vines to create more of these vines so that everybody can plant them. And each clone has different characteristics. So I hope that solves a little bit of that scientific mystery. And I kind of do like the idea of selection versus clone. It does make a little bit more easier, I think, to understand what they actually are. The big thing is, remember, there's a little bit of genetic difference, so there's changes in that, but not enough genetic difference to be a new species. So it's all Cabernet Franc, different selections or clones, or it's all Pinot Noir, different selections of clones. If the mutations happen so dramatically, then it can become a different species. Okay? Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy. If you have any topics that you would like me to cover, please leave me a comment and let me know what you would like me to cover in the future. Please like, save, share, do all that good stuff. Head over to the website to see the other posts that I've talked about in the past. Head to the YouTube channel, all of that good stuff. You know where to go. All right. Have a great day. Have a great week. And I will see you next Tuesday. Slancha.